Everything you experience in life, everything you achieve or fail to achieve, stems from one single root: your beliefs. Not what you wish was true, not what you say you believe when people are watching, but the deep, internal convictions that live inside you. These beliefs act like a filter. You don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. If you believe the world is hard, unfair, and unforgiving, you'll find evidence of that every single day. If you believe you're not enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough, then guess what? Your brain will go out of its way to confirm that. That's how powerful beliefs are. They become self-fulfilling prophecies. Your mind is constantly looking for proof of what you believe to be true. This isn't just philosophy. It's how your nervous system works. It's your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information based on what you think is important. The moment you believe something, your brain gets to work proving it. That's why two people can go through the same experience and walk away with completely different interpretations. One sees failure, the other sees a lesson. One feels defeated, the other feels challenged. The difference isn't the event, the difference is the meaning they give it, and that meaning is controlled by belief. Let me give it to you straight. Most people are trapped not by their circumstances, but by the story they've been telling themselves. That story is built on old beliefs. Beliefs picked up from parents, teachers, media, past experiences. Some of those beliefs were never even yours to begin with. You inherited them, and you've been living by them without even questioning if they still serve you. If you believe success is for other people, that money is evil, that love is painful, or that your past defines your future, then your life will reflect those beliefs. Not because they're true, but because you're unconsciously shaping your decisions to match them. Think about this, eggs. A belief is just a thought you've told yourself so many times that you no longer question it. But repetition doesn't make it true. It makes it familiar. And the brain loves familiarity. It loves certainty. That's why breaking limiting beliefs is so hard. You're not just letting go of an idea. You're letting go of identity that's been built around it. You've wrapped your ego, your habits, your expectations around a belief that says, this is just the way it is. But what if that belief is wrong? What if the limits you think are real are just a story you've never challenged? The first step to changing your life isn't setting new goals or finding new strategies. It's breaking the pattern of belief that's keeping you stuck. Because when you shift your beliefs, everything else follows. Your emotional state changes. Your physiology changes. Your decisions change, and when your decisions change, so does your destiny. Let's be honest. Beliefs can either be your prison or your passport. They can trap you in a box of fear and doubt, or they can set you free to act with purpose, passion, and power. It all depends on which ones you feed. If you feed the belief that you're resourceful, that you're resilient, that you were made for something more, you'll start to act like it. You'll stand taller, speak louder, move faster. Not because someone gave you permission, but because the belief in yourself became stronger than the fear that held you back. Some people believe that belief alone isn't enough, that you need proof before you can believe something new. But that's backward thinking. Belief comes first. You decide what's true for you, and then you create the evidence. Think about the greatest achievers in history. They didn't wait for someone to tell them it was possible. They believed when no one else did. They acted as if the future they saw in their mind was real, and then they made it real through action. Now let me ask you something personal. What belief is holding you back right now? What belief do you cling to that's keeping you small, keeping you safe, keeping you from showing up fully in your life? Is it belief that you're too young, too old, that it's too late, that it's too hard? Challenge it. Rip it apart. Find out where it came from. Who gave it to you? Why are you still carrying it? Because here's the true thing: you get to decide what's true for you. You get to choose your beliefs, and that means you get to choose your future. You don't need permission. You don't need proof. You need courage. The courage to let go of the lies you've been living by and adopt beliefs that actually empower you. Beliefs that push you to rise instead of shrink. Beliefs that remind you of who you really are, not who the world told you to be. And once you change those core beliefs, really change them at the level of your identity, your reality shifts with them. Not slowly. Because suddenly the same opportunities you used to ignore, you now act on. The same fears you used to run from, you now face. The same setbacks that used to break you, now build you. Your beliefs aren't just thoughts. They're commands to your nervous system. They direct your focus, your energy, your behavior. So when you upgrade your beliefs, you upgrade your entire operating system. We're taught to believe that change is a long, slow, painful process, that it takes months, years, maybe even decades to shift the course of our lives. But that's not how real change works. Real change happens in a moment, a single decision, a flash of clarity, a line you finally draw in the sand. Everything before that moment might have felt like a build-up, but the actual change, it happens the instant you decide. That's the power of true commitment. It's not gradual, it's explosive, transformational. And once it happens, everything else aligns. The problem is that most people confuse movement with change. They're busy researching, planning, talking, thinking, but they're not deciding. They're circling around the moment, afraid to commit, because making a real decision means cutting off all other possibilities. The word, decide, comes from the Latin decider, which literally means to cut off. That means when you decide, you eliminate the option of going back. There's no more dabbling, no more hoping, no more excuses. It's done. It's now. That's the kind of decision that creates instant momentum. Change doesn't require time. What it requires is leverage. You change the moment the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the fear of change. That moment when something inside of you says, enough, I'm done. Maybe it's the moment you look at your bank account and realize your excuses are costing you your future. Maybe it's the second you look into your child's eyes and know you've got to become someone better. Or maybe it's a quiet moment at 3 a.m. when your heart finally speaks louder than your doubt. It doesn't matter what triggers it. What matters is that it clicks. And when it does, you move. But here's the key, it doesn't happen by accident. You can wait around for life to slap you in the face, or you can create the conditions for change on purpose. You can generate your own emotional leverage. Stack the pain of staying where you are. Get real about what it's costing you, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Look at the toll it's taking on your relationships, your energy, your dreams. Then stack the pleasure of where you want to go. Feel it, taste it, see it so vividly that not going after it becomes unbearable. When you do that, when you raise the stakes and make it personal, you'll stop tolerating your own mediocrity. That's when you decide. And again, it's not about making some small, polite choice. It's about deciding with finality. That kind of decision creates an internal shift. You don't need to wait for New Year's Day. You don't need the stars to align. You don't need permission from the world. You decide that enough is enough, and you back it with massive emotional intensity. That's how you access power. That's how you move from, I should, to, I must. Because nothing changes until something becomes a must. When you operate from must, you find a way. You don't negotiate with your excuses anymore. You stop asking, how long will this take? And start saying, however long it takes. People think their past controls their future. That's another lie. The past only has power if you keep bringing it with you. The second you make a decision with enough emotional force, your past loses its grip. Your identity can shift in an instant, but only if you decide to let go of the story that's kept you stuck. You don't need a new year or a new job or a new relationship to change. You need a new standard. Raise it. Right now. Decide that from this moment forward, your life will no longer be shaped by default, but by design. And when you make that decision, the world starts to reorganize around it. Your brain starts filtering opportunities differently. Your body starts carrying itself differently. People respond to you differently because you're no longer the same person. That decision you made, that was the transformation. The actions that follow are just the proof. You may take time to build the results, but the shift, it already happened the moment you said, I will no longer accept this. It's not that time doesn't matter. It does. Habits, discipline, consistency, they all play a role. But without a defining moment of decision, all the time in the world is useless. Time is just potential. It's your decisions that activate it. You can wait 10 years for change, and it still won't come until you reach that breaking point. Or you can reach that point today, right now. The moment you truly decide is the moment you step into your power. You become the cause, not the effect. You stop reacting and start directing. And let's not confuse wishing with deciding. Wishing is passive. Wishing says, I hope it happens. Deciding says, I'll make it happen. One keeps you dreaming, the other moves you. One keeps you in your head, the other gets you into your body, into your emotions, into motion. And once you move with that kind of certainty, the universe responds. Because energy follows intention. And there is no more powerful intention than a decision made in the presence of total emotional commitment. That's when you shift from hesitation to action, from fear to focus, from wishing for change to being the change. If you want to change your life, change what you demand from yourself. not what you hoped for, not what you wish was different, what you absolutely will not accept anymore. Your standards are the invisible force shaping your destiny. They are stronger than your goals, stronger than your dreams, because your standards are what you live by every single day. You don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. And most people's lives are a reflection of what they've been willing to put up with for too long. Look at any area of your life, your body, your relationships, your income, your emotional state. Every one of those areas is being driven by a set of standards. You've trained yourself, either consciously or unconsciously, to believe that this is what's okay. This is what's normal. This is what's acceptable for you. And unless you raise the bar, you will keep operating at that same level, no matter how much you say you want more. People talk about goals all the time. They write them down, they create vision boards, they repeat affirmations. But none of that means anything if your standards don't match your goals. If you set a goal to get in the best shape of your life, but your standard is that you eat junk when you're stressed, you're not going to make it. If your goal is financial freedom, but your standard is to avoid taking risks, you're not going to build wealth. Goals are aspirational. Standards are foundational. They are what you'll return to the moment life gets hard, the moment you get tired, the moment it's inconvenient to push forward. You'll always fall back to your standard. And the truth is, your standards are not fixed. You can raise them in a moment. You can draw a new line and say, this is who I am now. This is what I expect of myself. And when you do that, when you really do that, your identity starts to shift. Because your identity is nothing more than the beliefs you reinforce about who you are. When your standards rise, your behavior must follow. Your habits adapt. Your self-talk changes. You stop making excuses and start finding ways. You stop settling and start striving. That shift is where transformation begins. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. It's in the decision to wake up an hour earlier, to speak up when you'd normally stay quiet, to say no when everyone else expects a yes. Every one of those decisions sends a message: I'm no longer available for anything less than excellence. That kind of internal decision can reshape your entire life because it puts you back in control. It reminds you that you're not a victim of circumstances. You are the architect of your reality. The challenge is that most people associate comfort with happiness. They think raising their standards will make life harder. And maybe it will, at first. But there's a different kind of hard. There's the hard that comes from staying stuck in a life that doesn't inspire you, from shrinking to fit into expectations that were never yours, from living beneath your potential. And then there's the hard that comes from growth, from pushing beyond the limitations you thought were real, from holding yourself to a higher level because you know you're made for more. One kind of hard breaks you down. The other kind builds you up. Choose the second. You've seen people who refuse to lower their standards. You know them the moment they walk in the room. There's a certainty in how they speak, a presence in how they carry themselves. It's not arrogance. It's ownership. They've decided that mediocrity is no longer welcome in their life. And that decision is what makes them magnetic. Because deep down, everyone wants to be around someone who reminds them of what's possible. When you raise your standards, you also raise the standards of the people around you. You stop enabling weakness, and you start modeling strength. You become the example, not the excuse. And that ripple effect can change families, communities, companies, legacies. But it starts with one person, one decision, one moment where you say, I am done living below what I know I'm capable of. This isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to accept anything that contradicts the vision you have for your life. It's about being ruthless with your habits, your language, your associations. It's about refusing to negotiate with your old self. Because every time you tolerate something that doesn't align with who you want to be, you reinforce the very identity you're trying to grow out of. And every time you honor your new standard, no matter how small the action, you reinforce your evolution. You are always training the world how to treat you. But more importantly, you're training yourself how to treat you. What you allow, you invite. What you tolerate, you accept. So the real question is, what are you no longer willing to tolerate? What would happen if you refused to live another day at the same level? If you made discomfort your new standard? Discomfort that comes from growth, from stretching, from holding yourself to a level most people aren't willing to reach. Because that is where your power lies. Not in hoping for better, but in demanding it from yourself, and never settling for less again. If you want to shift your life in any meaningful way, you have to learn one fundamental truth: emotion is the ultimate force. It's not strategy that drives people to act. It's not knowledge. It's not logic. It's emotion. Emotion is what moves the needle. It's what makes people leap when others hesitate. It's what makes you run through walls when others are still stuck at the drawing board. If you don't master your emotional state, you'll always be at the mercy of your circumstances, reacting to the world instead of creating your world. But if you do take control, if you learn to shift your emotional state at will, you become unstoppable. Every decision you've ever made, you made in a state. Every breakthrough, every failure, every moment of courage or fear or doubt, it all happened through emotion. And the truth is, your state determines your behavior. It colors how you see the world, how you interact with people, and what you believe is possible. The same opportunity can look like a gift or a threat depending on whether you're in a peak state or a poor one. The quality of your life doesn't come from what happens to you. It comes from the meaning you attach to it. And that meaning is shaped by the emotions you're feeling in that moment. Emotion is power. And the most successful people in the world are not the ones who avoid negative emotions. They're the ones who've learned how to use emotion, not be used by it. They know how to get into a powerful state, even when the world is crumbling around them. They've trained themselves to access certainty in the face of uncertainty. Not because they were born with something special, but because they've conditioned their nervous system to respond with strength instead of weakness. You've got to treat your emotional state the way an athlete treats their body. You don't just hope it's in peak condition, you train it, you strengthen it. You build rituals that pull you into a powerful place. Because if you wait for life to make you feel good, you'll spend your life waiting. But if you learn how to generate emotion from the inside out, you become the source of your own power. That's when you stop needing external motivation. That's when you stop depending on perfect conditions. You don't need the weather to be right. You are the weather. Your emotional state is a choice, and that's the most empowering truth there is. But most people don't act like it's a choice. They think their emotions just happen to them. They think, I'm angry because he did that. Or, I'm anxious because the situation is stressful. But that's not how it works. There's a pattern. There's a recipe for every emotion you've ever felt. Change your physiology, change your focus, change your internal language, and you change your emotion. It's not magic, it's mechanics. When you slump your shoulders, speak slowly, breathe shallow, and focus on what's wrong, your body has to create the emotion of sadness or fear or lethargy. But what happens when you stand tall, breathe deeply, move with intensity, and focus on what's possible? What happens when you shift your inner dialogue from, why me, to let's go? Your body responds. Your mind follows. That's not a trick, it's science. Emotion follows motion. Most people live their lives trying to manage their external world while ignoring their internal world. They think, if I can just fix this situation, I'll feel better. But the situation isn't the problem. It's the state they're in while dealing with it. If you're in a disempowered state, even a small challenge can feel overwhelming. But if you're in a peak state, even massive problems look solvable. The external doesn't dictate your life, the internal does. And here's the truth, every emotion is valuable, even the painful ones. Anger can be a catalyst for change. Sadness can lead to reflection. Fear can sharpen your senses. The goal isn't to eliminate emotion. It's to own it. To learn how to feel it fully, use it wisely, and not let it control your behavior. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never feel pain. It means you don't get stuck there. It means you feel it, learn from it, and move forward stronger. When you're in control of your emotional state, you show up differently. You communicate with more clarity. You lead with more certainty. You attract people. You influence outcomes. Why? Because emotion is contagious. People don't respond to your words as much as they respond to your energy. You can walk into a room and shift the entire atmosphere, not by what you say, but by the emotion you bring with you. That's leadership. That's presence. That's power. So the question becomes, what are you practicing emotionally every day? Because whatever you practice, you get good at. If you rehearse frustration, you'll become a master of it. If you practice gratitude, you'll live in abundance. If you dwell in fear, you'll always find a reason to play small. But if you make it a habit to return to strength, to courage, to passion, no matter what, you'll train yourself to live there. Emotion is the fuel of action. Without it, the best ideas mean nothing. The best plans go unused. The best opportunities pass by unnoticed. But with the right emotion, passion, hunger, certainty, love, you become a force of nature. You stop waiting for permission. You stop shrinking to fit the moment. You rise. You lead. You create. Because when you understand that emotion is power, and that you hold the keys to generate that power at will, you stop being a passenger and become the driver. There comes a point in life when you realize that your future isn't written by luck, chance, or the opinions of others. It's written by the decisions you make, moment by moment, day after day. Not the big, dramatic, once in a lifetime kind of decisions either. It's the small ones. The ones you make when nobody's watching, the ones that seem insignificant in the moment, but determine the trajectory of your life over time. Every breakthrough, every setback, every turning point you've ever experienced can be traced back to a decision, conscious or unconscious, that shaped who you are and where you're going. Destiny isn't something you stumble into. It's something you decide into. The quality of your life doesn't come from the circumstances you're dealt, but from how you choose to respond to them. Two people can go through the exact same storm, and one will rise while the other collapses. What makes the difference? Decisions. One decided to grow through it, the other decided to shrink. One decided to lead, the other decided to follow. One decided to find meaning, the other decided it was all meaningless. Those aren't passive outcomes. They're active choices, even when they don't feel like it. Every single day, you are making decisions that either reinforce your current identity or rewrite it. You decide whether you'll continue to carry the past like a weight or use it as fuel to rise. You decide whether to operate from fear or from faith, whether to step up or back down, whether to settle or stretch. The power to shape your life is already in your hands, not someday in the future, but right now, in this moment, this thought. People underestimate the power of decisions because they confuse them with preferences. They say they want to be fit, but they decide to hit snooze. They say they want to be wealthy, but they decide to keep avoiding the uncomfortable financial conversations. They say they want love, but they decide to stay guarded and bitter because it's safer. Wanting something doesn't make it real. Deciding does. A real decision cuts off all other options. It's not a maybe. It's not a try. It's not, we'll see. It's done. The rest is follow through. It doesn't mean everything will be easy after that decision. It means you'll no longer waste energy debating with yourself. When you truly decide, the how starts to reveal itself because your brain kicks into gear, your focus sharpens, your standards rise. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible to you before. You find the courage to act because you've burned the boats. There's no retreat, only forward. And it's not just about making good decisions when things are going well. It's about what you decide when life punches you in the face, when your plan falls apart, when the people you counted on disappear, when your heart gets broken, or your business tanks, or the doctor gives you news you didn't expect. That's when your true decisions reveal themselves. Not in theory, but in action. Do you decide to fight or do you fold? Do you decide to become more, or do you start shrinking into a smaller version of yourself? You always have a choice. That's the real power. No matter what happens to you, you can always choose what it means and what you'll do about it. You can decide to see failure as feedback. You can decide to turn pain into purpose. You can decide to stop playing the victim and step into the role of creator. That choice is always yours. Even when it doesn't feel like it, especially when it doesn't feel like it, that's when it matters most. Most people think their identity is something fixed, something inherited, something locked in by childhood or trauma or environment. But identity is nothing more than the story you keep telling yourself, and you can change that story with a single decision. The decision to be done with the old narrative. The decision to speak to yourself differently. To show up differently. To become someone new, not someday but now. Because that's all change ever is. A decision followed by action. Think about it. Every person who ever transformed their life started with a single moment of truth. A decision that enough was enough. That they wouldn't live another day trapped by the old version of themselves. That they'd no longer let fear, doubt, or history dictate their future. That's how empires are built. That's how movements are born. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary. Not by accident, but by decision. And the most powerful decisions are made not with your head, but with your heart. Logic gives you options, but emotion gives you drive. When you connect to something deeper, when you attach a decision to your values, your purpose, your reason why, you tap into a level of energy that can push through any obstacle. That's when you become dangerous to mediocrity. That's when you become a force of nature. Because now, you're not waiting for permission, you're not waiting for clarity, you're moving, and the universe moves with you. You don't need more time, you need more decision. Clarity doesn't come from sitting still, it comes from taking action. The fog lifts as you move. Life isn't asking you to have all the answers, it's asking you to choose, to decide who you will be in this moment. Not someday when it's more convenient, but now when it actually matters. Because when you decide with full commitment, the world starts bending in your direction. You stop floating and start steering. You stop existing and start living. And everything begins to change from that point forward, because your decisions have changed. And when your decisions change, your destiny follows. Belief is the invisible script running your life. It's not the truth that sets you free, it's what you believe to be true. Your beliefs are the filters through which you experience every situation, every person, every possibility. They determine what you see, what you don't see, what you think you're capable of, and what you unconsciously block yourself from even attempting. Your entire world is built on the foundation of your beliefs, and most of them were never chosen consciously. They were installed by experiences, by parents, by teachers, by culture, by pain, by repetition. But here's the truth. Once you become aware of them, you have the power to change them. And when you change your beliefs, you change your life. Your beliefs shape your identity. They define who you think you are and who you think you're not. If you believe you're someone who's always late, you'll find a way to be late, even if it costs you opportunities. If you believe you're terrible at relationships, you'll sabotage anything good before it gets too close. If you believe you don't deserve success, you'll find 1,000 tiny ways to block it without realizing you're doing it. These beliefs aren't facts. They're just stories you've accepted as facts. And the moment you challenge those stories, you start to reclaim your power. The strongest force in the human personality is the need to remain consistent with who we believe we are. That's why change is so hard for people. Not because they lack information or resources, but because they're trying to create a new life with the same old beliefs. If you believe deep down that you're not enough, that you're broken, that you'll always mess things up, then no amount of positive thinking or strategy will last. You'll find a way to return to that original belief, because your identity demands consistency. But identity is not fixed. It's not destiny, it's a pattern. And like any pattern, it can be rewritten. The key is interrupting the old belief and replacing it with something more empowering, something aligned with who you want to become, not who you've been. That starts with awareness. You have to catch the belief in real time. The moment you hear that voice that says, "You're not smart enough, you'll never succeed, you always screw this up," you have to stop and ask, whose voice is that? Where did I learn that? And do I have to keep believing it? Because beliefs are not facts, they're feelings of certainty about something, and you can create new certainty. How? By finding evidence, by stacking references that reinforce the new belief. If you want to believe you're a leader, start acting like one. Lead in small ways, make decisions, take initiative. Each time you do, you're giving your brain proof that this new belief is valid. And over time, that belief becomes automatic, just like the old ones did. But now you're the one installing it. You're the one writing the code. Beliefs are powerful because they shape your potential. They determine whether you tap into your full capacity or only use a fraction of it. If you believe you can, you start to access resources inside you that have been dormant. You become more creative, more focused, more resilient. You find ways where others find excuses. That belief unleashes your ability. But the reverse is also true. If you believe you can't, it doesn't matter how much potential you have. You'll never use it, you'll never see the path forward. That's not because the path isn't there, it's because belief acts like a pair of glasses. If the lens is cloudy, the whole world looks unclear. And what's even more powerful than belief in yourself is belief in meaning. When you believe there's a purpose behind the pain, you can endure almost anything. When you believe that your struggle is shaping you into someone stronger, more capable, more compassionate, you stop resisting the process. You start trusting it. That belief becomes your anchor when everything around you is uncertain. It gives you something to stand on, something to fight for. That's the kind of belief that transforms not just behavior, but being. But beliefs don't shift just because you want them to. They shift because you decide to challenge them. You stop accepting them as default. You stop giving them authority. You start becoming the author, you rewrite the story. That's when life begins to expand. When you believe something new is possible, you start taking different actions, and those actions lead to different results, which reinforce the new belief. It's a cycle, but now it's working in your favor instead of against you. Every leader, every innovator, every world changer started with a belief. Not a guarantee, not a roadmap, a belief. A belief that they could be more, do more, contribute more. A belief that their life had meaning. A belief that they were capable of something greater than their current circumstances. And they acted on that belief, even when there was no evidence yet. That's the leap. That's where transformation lies. Not in waiting for belief to show up fully formed, but in choosing to plant it anyway, and then nurturing it through repetition, through action, through commitment. Your current life is the physical manifestation of your strongest beliefs. If you want to shift the external, start with the internal. Ask yourself, what do I believe about myself? About success? About love? About failure? And where did those beliefs come from? Are they serving me or are they limiting me? Are they based on truth or on fear? And most importantly, what new beliefs must I adopt to create the life I desire? Because belief isn't just part of the process, it is the process. Belief sets the standard. Belief drives behavior. Belief fuels resilience. And belief, more than anything else, is what separates those who talk about changing their lives from those who actually do. Everything changes the moment you decide to take ownership of your life, fully, completely, and without negotiation. You've seen it now. The quality of your mindset shapes the quality of your life. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, or for someone to hand you the map. It's about choosing to wake up, to step up, and to lead your own transformation from the inside out. Clarity doesn't come from hesitation. It comes from action. Power doesn't come from waiting. It comes from deciding. And lasting change, that comes when you commit to mastering your focus, owning your emotional state, expanding your beliefs, and living in alignment with a vision bigger than your fears. Your past doesn't define you unless you let it. Your circumstances don't dictate your future unless you surrender to them. You are not your limitations, you are not your failures. You are the author. You are the creator. And the pen has always been in your hands. What you do with it next determines everything. This isn't motivation. This is a call to remember who you are, to rise above the noise, to take the wheel of your life and steer it with purpose, with power, and with absolute conviction that your future is not only possible, it's waiting for you to show up and claim it.